So I'm supposed to get a video together to walk through my build and show you what I've built. A lot of builders have created a build video series or a single build video. Unfortunately, I don't really have the shop space here to be able to set up to do video recording and lighting and miking and all the fun stuff. It's unfortunately way too small of a space. And behind the camera right now, there's a lot of boxes and stuff because this is my garage. So unfortunately, I don't have much in the way of build video footage to show. However, I can walk through a lot of what has gone into this build. Starting with the inspiration, the guitar that I've built is based on an F-style mandolin. I have a absolute love for the mandolin. I play the mandola most of the time. I used to own a mandolin until it unfortunately got stolen. The F-style that was designed in I believe the 1920s by Lloyd Loar is just an absolute gorgeous instrument. So the guitar that I've built is inspired by that design, including the big scroll and the horns on it and just the overall look. The original design that I had done was intended to be a long scale mandolin. I was planning on doing a 6-string, around a 21.5 inch, 21 inch long scale mandolin. And upon talking with a number of friends, they seemed to think that it would sell better or potentially have more interest if it were a full-size guitar. So what I ended up building was a 25.5 inch scale, Fender scale, 6-string guitar, normal tuning, but I kept the same design. The design was designed to be an offset style, providing for more momentum visually, and it also inferred this aggression in the design. So the angles are a little bit sharper, there's less of the roundedness of the overall mandolin, and I liked it, and I got a lot of feedback from people that they liked it, and I carried the same influence through to the F-holes on it, of this more striking angular look than the very fluid curvy look of the F-style mandolin. The first feedback I got from Instagram when I was posting pictures as I started to build was that it looked like a Karl Thompson guitar, which I had not heard of Karl Thompson somehow, and upon looking him up, I saw why people seemed to think that it looked quite a bit like a Karl Thompson guitar, and I did a little bit of research into Karl Thompson's background, and it appears that Karl Thompson too is influenced by the 1910s, 1920s of Gibson guitars. His father had owned a Gibson guitar in the era, from that era, that had the similar scroll and work that was from the mandolin, and it influenced his design style. So we have the same influence, though I definitely was not inspired by Karl Thompson. I frankly didn't know he existed prior to working on this guitar. The instrument itself is built out of wood from La Rose Guitars. I've bought a number of pieces from him over the last couple of years, and this project I decided to go that direction and saw a number of good pieces from him. The top is a Claro walnut, and the back of it is black limba. The neck is the roasted maple, bird's eye roasted maple. All of those came from him. The fingerboard is Zero Cote, which comes from Stumac. And I went for very pretty wood instead of simple wood. So instead of focusing on the design being the driving point, the wood contributed heavily to the overall look of the guitar. So everything else when it comes to the hardware, I want it to be subdued. I was originally planning on possibly going with more of chrome hardware or gold hardware, but I figured it would be too loud on those woods, and I went with black instead. And the black definitely stays subtle and also offers a striking visual appeal. The build took about 6 weeks, which is the fastest that I've managed to build an instrument so far. This is my third full instrument build. The mandolin sitting here, hung up here, took a few months worth of work, mostly because of time available. The ukulele was CNC'd by a local company, and I assembled it over the course of a few months. The guitar took about 6 weeks, and that's largely because of lessons learned from prior builds. The ukulele hanging behind me has a control cavity that is way too small to work in. It fits the parts, but it doesn't fit the wiring as easily. It was a miscalculation on my behalf and a lack of experience. And I brought that experience to the mandolin and brought a lot more space to work in. This guitar has a lot more space because it's a semi-hollow body, but the door is made to be much wider and offer the space to be able to get in and do the wiring and do it comfortably. What else? The F-holes were very, very fun on this build, but what I learned was that I need a better saw, and I probably should have gone out and got a better saw for it. The saw that I used was rather flimsy and rather difficult to work in and around it, and the blade was not sharp enough. Also, sanding the inside of the F-holes was a very painful process. I built a lot of my own sanding instruments for it, just out of scrap wood that I had, but a better set of files for that small work would have been very helpful, and I'll definitely be picking that up before I build another instrument. The thing that has scared me on every instrument so far has been the pickup placement and the cavities, the pockets for them. I'm still scared to death of doing pickup pockets. I lost a few days of time available to work on them by just redrawing the lines on the body of where the pickups would be, making sure that they were precise, making sure they were in the right place, making sure I was happy with where they would be, all the way to the point of taping on the pattern, the template, and being ready to route, and then scaring myself out of doing it. And I did this probably 2 or 3 days in a row, and finally I just did it and plunged the router in and got the job done. The fingerboard on this was a problem at the last minute. I had made the choice to buy a Fender standard fingerboard from StewMac, and it comes with a small head on the north side of the nut and a nut slot, like a Fender Strat would have. I had intended to cut that off, and I decided at the last minute when I was gluing it up that it wouldn't be a problem. Unfortunately, I didn't adjust my design for it, and it's led to the strings being a little close to the edges up top, and had I followed my designs where I did the calculations 100 times, it would have led to a better result. It doesn't affect the playability or anything like that, but it's a little awkward visually, and I'll show that here in a couple minutes with some B-roll video. What else? The final bits. So I was hoping I would be 100% finished by today. Luckily, I'm very, very close. The main thing that's left is the cavity door. I've not cut that out yet. I left it for last, and it ended up being missed. It's dangling off after today. Benefit of, doing the priority items first, is the priority items got done. The other things that are left is the nut got changed at the last minute. I was expecting to be able to use a Fender standard nut. It didn't fit my needs exactly. It was a little bit too low. For some reason sitting very low in the fingerboard, which led to more fret buzz than should be there, and it wasn't exactly wide enough. The strings were too far in, and the string spacing was awkward, so I had to make a last minute brand new nut last night and carve out a slightly wider nut slot. So the nut slot needs to be cleaned up a little bit more, and the nut still needs to be cleaned up more. The treble strings are still riding a little bit high on their action on the nut side because the slots are not low enough, and the nut itself is not low enough on the treble side, so I need to clean that up a little bit more. And then I need to get the action and the intonation set up better. The intonation is pretty close, but not exact. So I just need to do the basic setup stuff. And then the other thing I found once I had the guitar together is that there's a little bit of fret buzz on a few of the frets. These simple fix with a file get in there, polish that up, and get that finished, and then apply some polish to the frets. They're not as shiny as I would like them to be. So most of it is the setup and the tech work that's left over. The overall build is done, and now we're down to just, hours to do the final stuff. So yeah, I'm going to record some B-roll and walk through a little bit of the design stuff. All the designs were done in an Illustrator-like application for the iPad. It was all done with an Apple Pencil. Everything was sketched initially with an Apple Pencil and then brought into vector software. We have a Cricut paper cutter machine here, so all of the templates start on the Cricut, full scale, and that way I can feel it out before I transfer it to plywood or to MDF to make the actual templates, and then officially cut it out of the real wood. This has allowed for me to do a lot more iterative stuff with the more design-centric things like the headstock or the logos or with the body, and just making sure that things are the way that I want them to be. Paper is much cheaper than MDF. I'm very much a fan of the iPad, so I do almost all my stuff from the iPad. What else? Any other little details? Probably not as much. So I'll record some B-roll, and there'll be a little track playing here. And yeah, good luck to every other competitor here in the competition. And I've been watching your builds on Instagram. Follow me on Minotaur Guitars on Instagram, and hopefully you'll get to see some more. I've got a couple ukuleles planned for the rest of the year, and a fiddle for my wife, a solid body electric fiddle, and maybe even a mando cello. I've got a beautiful piece of wood from La Rose for a spalted maple top on a potential mando cello. So that'll be that, and we'll have some B-roll. Thank you. Bye.